Before the Bartholomew massacre, France was embroiled in a long-standing religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants. The Protestant Reformation in the 16th century had sparked tension across Europe. France was no expectation. The Huguenots, French Calvinist Protestants, were a majority group that faced discrimination and persecution from the Catholic majority. The wars of religion, a series of conflicts between Catholics and Protestants, had been raging in France for decades prior to the massacre. The conflict was fueled by a mix of religious, political, and social factors, with both sides vying for power and influence in the dividing country. In the years leading up to the massacre, there were several key events that heightened tensions between Catholics and Protestants. The Edict of St. Germain in 1562 granted limited religious freedoms to the Huguenots, but it was met with resistance from Catholics who saw it as a threat to their dominance. This led to outbreaks of violence and pre-sales, as both sides clashed over issues of religion and politics. The St. Bartholomew Day massacre was not an isolated event, but rather the communication of years of animosity and conflict between Catholics and Protestants in France. The marriage of King Charles VI's sister to a Protestant leader served as a catalyst for the violence. But the underlying tensions and grievances of both sides were the true causes of the massacre. The events leading up to the Bartholomew massacre highlighted the complex and volatile nature of religious conflict in France during the 16th century. The massacre itself was a tragic and brutal episode that left a deep scar on the country's history and served as stark remark for the dangers of intolerance and extremism. It is important to study and understand the events that led up to the massacre in order from the past and prevent such tragedies from happening again in the future. The Bartholomew Massacre, also known as the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, was a tragic event that took place in France. On the night of August 24, 1572, Catherine de Medici, the Queen Mother and Regent of France, gave the order for the massacre to begin. Catholic mobs descended upon the homes of Huguenots in Paris and other cities, killing anyone they could find. The violence quickly spread through the country, with thousands of Huguenots beginning slaughtering in the streets, churches, and homes. The death toll is estimated to be anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000 people. The Bartholomew Massacre shocked Europe and sparked outrage amongst Protestants and Catholics alike. The brutality of the attacks and the scale of the violence were undescended, and the massacre marked a turning point in the religious wars that plagued France for decades. The Huguenots were left devastated and demoralized, and many fled the country in fear for their lives. In the aftermath of the massacre, King Charles VI tried to justify the killings by claiming that they were necessary to prevent a Protestant uprising. However, the massacre only served to deepen the divide between Catholics and Protestants and fueled further violence in the ensuing years. The Bartholomew Massacre remains a dark chapter in French history and a powerful reminder of the dangers of religious intolerance and political extremism. It serves as a country tale about the consequences of fascination and importance of tolerance and understanding among different religion groups. As we reflect on the events of that fateful day, let us remember the victims of the massacre and strive to build a more peaceful and harmonious world for the future generations. The massacre did not bring an end to the religious wars in France. Instead, it intensified the violence and deepened the divide between Catholics and Protestants. Retaliatory attacks from both sides followed the massacre, leading to further bloodshed and destruction. The Huguenots were outraged by the betrayal and violence they had suffered. Many sought revenge against the Catholic oppressors. The aftermath of the massacre also had political consequences. The reputation of King Charles VI was tarnished by his role in the killings, and his authority was further undetermined by the violence that had erupted. The massacre also fueled tensions within the royal court and among the nobility, leading to powerful struggles and rivalries that would shape French politics in the years to come. In the decades following the massacre, French continued to embroil in religious conflict. The wars of religion would drag on for another 2 decades, both sides engaging in brutal and bloody battles for control of the city. The control would come to an end with the signing of the Edict of Nantes in 1598, which granted religious freedoms from the Huguenots and brought fragile peace to France. As we reflect on the events that followed the Bartholomew massacre, it is crucial to learn from the mistakes of the past and strive to build a more peaceful and harmonious society. The legacy of the massacre reminds us of the importance of respecting religious diversity, promoting dialogue and reconciliation, and working towards a future which senseless violence can be prevented.